What's up, my dudes? Before you go to the description and download the Power Hour UI, I must stress that you're going to have to listen to the tutorial on how to do so. I've worked on this since launch with lost sleep and lack of food, but the Classic WoW community deserves nothing less than the best. A lot of what we're doing here has not yet been done before for Classic WoW, so I had to get creative to make this process as seamless as possible for you guys. My friend who plays a character named Tivadar volunteered to test the downloading process and check for any performance issues. We found that there was an add-on causing lag spikes after combat, and he was the one to discover that Classic threat meter was the issue. But don't worry guys, because we have an alternative to that threat meter. Additionally, I've had to replace add-ons that I've found will bug out situationally or just don't work with what we need to make this as easy as possible for you guys. That is to say, this UI is now free of all detectable bugs and lag-inducing add-ons while creating a close to pixel perfect and clean setup. It's also meant to be successfully used by each faction and every single class in the game. Just before we download this UI, you have to be playing in a 16:9 aspect ratio resolution for this UI to work. Here are your resolution options. I'll also put it in the description for you to reference. To change your resolution in the easiest way without any errors, go to the battle.net client, open that up, and then over here you're going to see an options drop-down menu. You click on that and then select game settings. From there, under World of Warcraft Classic, you want to check the box next to additional command line arguments. In that text box that pops up, you can type in whichever resolution you prefer. But before typing the resolution, you have to put in a dash. So as an example, you can type in -1920 x 1080. After you do that, just hit enter and leave this window open. We're going to come back to it in a second. Now, if you haven't done so already, go to the description. The link that's shown right after the text download Power Hour UI here is what you want to click on. Download the zip file that I provide for you guys through that link. Once downloaded, extract the zip file to wherever you'd like, then open it and move it to the side of your screen like so. Next, navigate to your original World of Warcraft Classic folder. You can do this by going back into the battle.net window that we left open from before and going back to that options drop-down menu. Click on that, go down, and then select Show and Explorer. Once you do that, again, to make it easy for yourself, put this on the opposite side of the screen from the extracted Power Hour UI folder. Inside of this classic World of Warcraft folder, you're going to see World of Warcraft. You just want to navigate through to that. Then go into _classic_, open up WTF. Now go over to the Power Hour UI folder, go into WTF, and stay right there. All we're going to do is copy your original config folder and paste it over at the Power Hour UI official WTF folder. Once that's done, open up this newly pasted config file in Notepad or some text application. Do that and scroll to the bottom of this. You're going to see UI scale somewhere at the bottom here. If you don't see it, I just recommend to do Control F and type in UI scale, then press enter, and the Finder should locate it for you. Now, this is a really important step to make sure everything is in the right place. Go back to the description of this video. You're going to see this number next to UI scale. You got to copy that and replace whatever number you have under UI scale with this new number. Once that's done, you hit Control S or go to File and Save. Close that out, and inside the Power Hour UI's WTF folder, we got to go through Account. So once you're there, you're going to see a folder to rename. Just right-click it, rename, and type in your account name in all caps. If you don't know what this is, because it could be different for some people, like for some reason my friend just had a series of random numbers that was his account. So if you don't know this, go into your account on your original WTF folder, and it will say what your account name is. After that, again on the Power Hour folder side, you want to navigate into this folder we just renamed, and then rename this folder right here to whatever server your character in question is playing on. For example, for me, it would be Stalag. After renaming that folder, go through it, and then you want to rename this next one to whatever your primary character is. And don't worry, because after we set this up, you won't have to copy and paste these folders when you make alts and stuff. I'll show you how to figure all that out pretty soon here. So once that's renamed, go all the way back to the outer Power Hour UI folder, and then in your original Classic WoW folder, navigate back to the _classic_ folder. And all we need to do here, guys, is very easy. Delete your original interface and WTF folders, then copy the Power Hour UI folders here, the interface and the WTF that's in there, and paste it in your WoW client folder. Okay, we're done with all this craziness with folders here. Let's go into WoW Classic so you can get on your character and see what's up. And of course, make sure to pause the video where necessary. Okay, once you enter in with your character, you're going to see a prompt that says new character detected. Do you wish to load the settings for Power Hour UI? Select yes for that. If you don't see that prompt, then you want to type in /reflux switch Power Hour, all lowercase, and Power Hour will be one word. And it should look just like this, where the whole UI is set up except for the mini-map. You just want to mouse over to that and right-click. At the bottom of the main options page for this, you're going to see a drop-down menu that's titled Copy a Profile. Go through that and then select Thror Stalag. It'll say copying this profile will reload your UI. Are you sure? You select Accept. Before we go into the list of add-ons and go through all the details of everything, I have a hidden feature for you guys. To access it, go to this button on the bottom right right corner of the screen, it'll say Dominos above it in the tooltip. You want to left click it, and then you'll see these 5 and 6 boxes that are next to your action bars. Those are actually potential extra action bar buttons that you might need later down the line. I just put that there for you just in case. Now to show these action bars, you want to right click on the 5 or the 6, and in this layout page that we're in right now, the second to last slider is opacity. You want to put that all the way up to 100. What happens on occasion is that sometimes even when you do that, the buttons don't show. So the fix to this is just to type in /reload and press enter. Then the action bars will show there for you. To change the bindings of action bars, you want to shift left click that same Dominoes button that we worked with on the bottom right of the screen. From there you can select whether you want these key bindings to be character specific or not. It'll say what to do in that prompt there, but all you have to do is mouse over these action bars and press the key in question that you want. If something is already bound that you don't want to be bound, you just have to hover over that and press escape. If you want your UI from this character to go to other characters, if you change it from what it is originally here, after you make changes, you have to type in /reflux space save. Press enter, and then I also recommend to just reload your page again by typing in /reload and hitting enter. That way, when you either log on to an already existing alt or create a new alt, when it gives you the prompt to load in that Power Hour UI, it'll actually give you the updated version that you created. The only other thing to set up with that UI besides saying yes to that prompt initially is of course doing exactly what we just did, which is just to right click the minimap and go to Thor Stalag, unless of course you make another profile for that you prefer. Now before we get into a class specific hidden feature here, just because I got some questions about it from my old UI video, your experience bar is right under your player nameplate right here. If you navigate to your character info window and go to the reputation tab on the bottom, once you select one of the reputations and show as experience bar, you'll also be able to see your reputation progress on that bar as well. And once you reach 60, of course, that experience bar will disappear to where you'll be able to more easily see the reputation bar right there. Also, at any point, if you ever notice that you might be lagging a little bit, go down to the performance part of this black bar here and left click it. What it essentially does is it automatically deletes all of the unnecessary cache files for each of the add-ons and puts you back at sort of the bare minimum of what these add-ons require to function properly. And if anything bugs out with the UI in any sort of way, my initial advice would be to just /reload and see what happens. If it doesn't fix it, then maybe exit the game, come back. If all else fails, just throw in the comments the question and I'll help you out. Now, if you're playing a hunter, wand user, or any class that has a ranged weapon where you want to see the timer for it, I got another hidden feature for you. You just want to type in the chat /WST. You should see in this add-on list on the very bottom is WeaponSwingTimer. You want to select the plus sign on the right of it and then go down to hunter and wand settings. From here you go under general settings and select enable. I think this is a really useful timer for your ranged weapons if you're going to be using them a lot. Of course, if you ever want to disable it, you just do the same steps we did but uncheck enable. Okay, that concludes the basic setup for this video. Now let's go into the list of every single add-on. I'll tell you what each of their functions are, commands for manipulating the settings, and I'll also provide certain tutorials on how I set up certain things like the skins or the background sort of shading that I set up on the bottom of the screen in Photoshop, and then just some general rule of thumb fixes that I had for some issues that I stumbled upon. I'll be providing in the description timestamps to every relevant part of this video, including each of the individual add-ons, so you know where to go. Alright guys, let's start it up here. AtlasLootClassic is a great addition to your user interface if you want to be able to browse the loot tables for certain bosses at any time of gameplay. It shows you the skill requirements and reagents that you would need to create certain crafting items. It also shows you faction and PvP specific items that you can get at different levels of reputation. It allows for you to check out every tier set, what you look like in it, navigate through world boss loot pools, and also what you can get from world events. It has a search bar when you click on the items button there. You can also favorite items by alt left clicking them. When you do so, of course, it shows a star right next to the name of the item so you know it's one of your favorites. And of course, to open up Atlas Loot to begin with, you have to type in /AL. I also manipulated the settings so that in Atlas Loot you're able to see the minimum level for entry in a dungeon. That way you have that reference just in case you want to know that. If you want to see all the commands for Atlas Loot, type in /AL // and that's the word slash, not the actual symbol. Auctionator is a great add-on as it shares the Blizzard UI with its own. You can choose which one to use, but I found that it's pretty intuitive to use this Auctionator add-on. You just search for the items you want in the buy tab. If you ever wanted to sell something in the sell tab for Auctionator, you just go to the item that you want to sell and alt left click it. It'll go directly into the Auctionator window. The add-on will scan the auction house and give you a perfect undercutted price for that item. If you want to play with the settings here, you just press escape, go to interface options, and then you'll see on the add-ons tab on the top left there that when you click on that and you're in there, Auctionator will be at the top and you can manipulate the settings there. You can select which default auction duration you want, what you want to see on tooltips, how much you'd want to undercut something for depending on its price. You could say how many stacks you prefer prefer to have sold for a certain type of item, and you can even create a shopping list similar to how Atlas Loot works with that favorite feature. So this add-on is super customizable and pretty easy to use in my opinion. Bagnon is an add-on that consolidates all of your bags into one window. To toggle this, you either have to press B or press the bag icon that's below on the TitanPanelClassic bar in this area. You can type in /Bagnon to see all of the options that you have as far as commands are concerned. To also configure some of the settings for Bagnon, you could also press that gear icon that's at the top right of your bag window, and doing so will bring you back into interface options and you could look around at what you want to change. Most of what I changed with this bag from its defaults was I changed the background color to black, pushed up the alpha all the way so there's 100% opacity there, and I also reversed the slot and bag order so that way whenever you get a new bag and add it to your bag slots, instead of the window collapsing down and requiring for you to move it up again, it now goes upwards so you don't have to touch it if you don't want to. BetterVendorPrice shows per individual, current stack, and full stack prices on the items that you mouse over. I find it to be super useful because if you're farming items, you know exactly what kind of value you're getting from each, and you don't have to sort of calculate how many you're going to get from a stack because it already does it for you. You can type in /BVP to see a list of commands. Capping Battleground timers, or capping for short, has the most important features in providing you these bars that represent the queue timers within Battlegrounds. That's to say, of course, for example, that if you see a tower that's being capped in Alterac Valley, you'd be able to see it through this add-on. To configure the settings for this, if you want to move it from where I put it, type in /capping. Deadly Boss Mods is an important add-on to be able to use to see alerts on important tactics for instances that you go to, raids, and even world bosses. From my understanding, Deadly Boss Mods is not quite done yet, but what we have in this UI is the most up-to-date version. To manipulate some of the options for this add-on, just type in /DBM. Details is my preferred replacement to Recount. I remember when playing in private servers, Recount would provide lag spikes even when I was resetting all the data quite consistently. This add-on, I would argue, is more comprehensive than Recount, as you can see from all the options it provides. I mean, it's got damage done, damage taken, enemy damage taken, healing done, overhealing, healing absorbed, rage generated, dispels, interrupts, and also some awesome custom additions like crowd control or potions used. Too cool, man. And actually, I stumbled upon a super recent plugin for this add-on that now provides a threat meter. To get to the threat meter, you have to go to that gear icon, go to the plugins RAID dropdown, and select Tiny Threat. You can also create more windows for details, so if you wanted to see damage done, healing done, and a bunch of other things at once, then you can of course do that. You can report the results of the data you record with this little icon here, and to the right of it you can reset data, and I'm sure you guys get the gist of all of this. It's super amazingly customizable. To see the list of commands for this add-on, you type in /details. And to more easily jump into the configuration settings, I would click on this gear icon right here on that window, and all the customizable information on this add-on will be there for you. Dominos, as you may know by now from the basic guide that we had in the beginning of the video, is an add-on for action bars. It allows you to move around the role region for items that pop up when you're using group loot. It has a cast bar, a pet bar, class buttons, a menu. I think it's super useful for our setup here. Again, with Dominos, as I said in the basic guide, you can right-click on the 5 or the 6 action bars here, increase the opacity to 100%, and have some extra buttons to work with. Now for Dominos, I recommend actually, instead of having to type in all those commands, you can go to the bottom right of the screen here with this little drum looking thing, and it'll show you your options. You can left click to enter configuration mode, shift left click to enter binding mode, that is of course for binding your action bar keys, and right click to show the options menu. So I use this icon quite a bit to make my life easier. And of course, don't forget, as we already said, when you want to bind your keys, you have to hover over the buttons themselves, press the key in question that you want to be bound to that button, and then hit OK at the top. If a button of course is already bound to another key, you mouse over it and press escape first before you apply your new key that you want for it. You're also able to bind more than one key on each individual button here. And for Dominos, just don't forget, if the buttons ever don't appear for any reasons after you change the settings on them, type in /reload and it'll be absolutely fine. Type in /Dominos to play with the settings. Now in my prior video, we talked about this add-on like many of the add-ons on this list. It's called FiveSecondRule. I personally placed it just under your player unit frame here. I also took away the numbered timer on there, so it's just a visual bar here, but you'll be able to change that back if you really want to in the settings in a second. What it does is that after you use an ability that costs mana, it'll run this bar underneath your unit frame that lasts for 5 seconds, and when the bar runs out, that's when your regen starts again for your mana. Super useful for lengthy raid encounters or even when you're in PvP. And to check out the commands for this, or maybe if you wanted to move around the bar from where it is, you type in /FSR. GatherMate 2 is a replacement to Gatherer for us here. It can track herbs, mines, and even fishing pools, and once it does so, it places them on the minimap and map so that you know where to go next time you're trying to look for the same spot. In my opinion, unless you have a little bit of experience with with these gathering professions in WoW, this is really going to help you immensely and really, I think, improve your performance overall when you're trying to do routes over and over, that is. You can find the GatherMate options window by going into the menu bar, pressing the interface options, and going into what you want to see with this add-on. What I really like about this is actually the filters option. Of course, it's not yet completely updated for Classic WoW because it has all these nodes checked off from further expansions, but it's not going to affect the add-on's performance negatively in any way. It thankfully also supports profiles, so the more you gather collectively with all your characters, the more your maps will be filled up with data and provide for you comprehensive details on where you can get certain things. Guidelime, if you download it by itself, will only provide for you demo guides. So what I did is I went in and I found the most comprehensive single guides for both the Horde and Alliance, so that every class per faction will have a guide for themselves. I think it works really nice with Questie, actually. Originally on the settings for this add-on, it would show this arrow that's inside of a lime. It's kind of like this weird icon, and I personally don't really like the look of it, so I just went with the standard Questie looking arrow. The way that you follow it, of course, is on the map, you go to the arrow icon first, and then it'll show you what you have to do next after that. So just follow its lead. Of course, I recently got the most up-to-date versions of these guides for Guidelime, but in prior versions, sometimes the coordinates that led the arrow were inaccurate by a little bit, so I would just be on the lookout. I think it really helps to just look at the text to the guide. If you ever find yourself completing a quest and the guide doesn't read that you did, all you have to do is check these boxes until you're at the point that matters for you. From my understanding, to have the most effective gameplay from this, you kind of want to start from the beginning, but it's okay because I personally didn't anyways with this guide, so I've had a great time with it though, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. I assume most of you guys aren't starting from level 1 when you get this, so it's no big deal. If you accidentally or purposefully close out this window at some point and you want to open it back up later, all you have to do is type in /lime. Now, of course, to navigate to the guides that you want to work with, right-click the top left corner of this window here and select Available Guides. Go with the one you want. Also, a really awesome feature of Guidelime, which a lot of quest helpers don't really have, is that when you right-click that top left portion of the window and select Editor, you could actually go in and totally edit any of the steps that you want to for the guides. So, for example, if the arrow points to the wrong spot, you go to the coordinates info and just pretty much put in the coordinates that match exactly what you want. The guides will be really accurate for you, but just in case on rare occasions that they're not, you could pretty much fix it firsthand and then never have to deal with it again. And when you want to save, you hit that Save Guide button. And then, of course, I also recommend that you hit /reflux save and then /reload. That'll ensure that all the info is set in the database so that when you reload the Power UI for a new character, or if you have to for any other reason load it again, then those presets and the saved guides will be there for you. And if for any reason the guide goes actually ahead of what you're at, then you can always just reset it by going to Available Guides and then hitting that Reset Guide button. That way you can just check the boxes until you're at where exactly you left off. And then if you want to play around with the settings, you could either right-click on the same region of this window and go to Options, or of course you can go through Interface Options on the menu bar. So that way, just in case you accidentally, for example, maybe skipped a step or something that you didn't mean to, you could show skip steps so you know exactly what to do just in case. And if you wanted to change something like the arrow style or the map marker style from what I changed it to, then you can change it around. I also took out the additional markers just because I feel like Classic Codex is good enough for me. Again, with this add-on, you have the general options to automatically accept and turn in quests, automatically select a flight path, which is kind of weird to me. You could skip cutscenes and stuff like that, but all that stuff's up to you. It's pretty customizable, and I like this guide. Both Tividar and I are having a good time with it. There is a small inconsistency with this add-on though, and I must say, if the arrow in the shaded area here ever disappears, it's either because the quest that you're doing doesn't have a required arrow, or because it's bugged, and you just have to type in /reload, and then the arrow will reappear. Alright guys, here's an add-on that I'm personally in love with, and I'm going to provide a tutorial for you guys on it because I've gotten requests for it. Basically what this add-on provides for you is the ability to import any image onto your UI. And so for me, what that means is I'm able to put in skins for action bars and some nice shading in the background at the bottom of the screen, as you can see here. To see the commands for this add-on, you type in /kgPanels, one word. I'm always using /kgPanels space config, but instead of having to do that, at the bottom right of the screen on this black bar here next to the time and the sound icon is this little box looking thing where you can click on it and go straight into the settings instead of having to type in the command all the time, because you'd be going into the settings quite a lot to make this happen. The first thing you want to do is take a screenshot of your UI in game once you're ready to put a skin or whatever you want to put in behind it. I'm going to lower the panel opacity to all of my skins just so we have a good framework for this. Okay, so this is the the look of the UI without the skins that I provide. I took my screenshot here. Let's do it. Now to start, we're going to go into Photoshop. The point of going into Photoshop is that we can most accurately put skins into our game from the look of a screenshot. But we're going to be exporting an image from Photoshop as a PNG. So if you have another software that you prefer to use, or you don't have Photoshop for whatever reason, you could probably use it. I just haven't tried it out that way. You're also going to need GIMP, by the way, so download that as we do this. All right, to navigate to your screenshots in the battle.net window, you just hit the options and go show and explorer, or just navigate to your World of Warcraft folder in another way. That's up to you. Go into the classic folder and then you'll see screenshots there. Find your screenshot and then drag it into Photoshop. So essentially, instead of creating what I created, which looks like this, just about, if I resize it here, let's just do something very basic here. We're just going to cover the gap underneath this black bar right here because it just kind of gets in the way. It doesn't really look too aesthetically pleasing. Grab the rectangle tool and let's just do any region. It doesn't matter how big or small it is. We're going to transform it. And then I go to the move tool and I Control T to transform. What I do is I bring it all the way to either end of screenshot here. And then I drag it down. So you drag it all the way down and it'll fit itself at the bottom here. And then yeah, you just fit it as you want it to look. I think that's about right. And now just so you guys know, if you're somewhat new to Photoshop, if you ever have several layers like this that you just create so many of and you want them to all be combined, all you have to do is select all the layers that you want to put together, right click, first rasterize layers, and then you want to merge layers. And that puts them into one layer, of course, so that way you don't have to import a bunch of different images and sort of waste your own time in that sense. Okay, so what we do is we go to the layer that we want to be imported into WoW. Now before we export it, I want us to rename it so we know exactly what we're working with. Try and make it one word, it just makes it easier. Right click it and then click Quick Export as PNG. You do that and then you'll want to export it to a location that you'll remember. kgPanels will be case sensitive as well, so just keep that in mind as we go through this. Now you need to open up GIMP. Don't forget yet again to pause this video whenever you need to. Drag our image into the window, and then what we need to do is select image and then go to scale image. Okay, the point to this is that when we import it into WoW, kgPanels will only recognize pixel measurements that are within the power of 2 and equal to or less than 512. So in the video here, I'll provide some options for you as far as what your measurements should look like. What we want to do here is, since this width is really high, we're going to put this up to 512. And then what's going to happen, this will automatically give us a recommendation as to what the height should be based on the aspect ratio of the image itself. I got actually really lucky with this because it says 8 pixels, which is perfect. That's part of the powers of 2, but it might not always be the same for you. Once it gives you that recommendation, before you type in the height number, unlink this, because if you were to leave it linked, then you would change this number and then the width would change and it would just be a battle. So once that's unlinked, the number that you'll see that was estimated for the height, you have to change to its closest power of 2 number neighbor. And once again, do not go greater than 512. So for example, if the height is set at 10, you want to put it at 8. If it's set at something like 29, you want to put it at 32. And so anyways, I don't mean to overcomplicate it. Just make sure that the dimensions are set in numbers that are at the power of 2. Once that's done, you select scale. It'll probably be a little or a lot smaller than what it originally was, but don't worry, we can rescale it once we put it into WoW. So what you have to do from here is go to File, Export As, and make sure to export as. Don't do anything else. For me, I'm going to do .tga. It has to be a TGA file for this to work. Then you press Export, and make sure it's not RLE compression. If it's RLE compression, I've heard that it bugs out on occasion, so you want to uncheck that. And if you want to add other images, not just this one, you first have to close this out and select Discard Changes, and then drag your next image in and do the same steps we just did. Now, as you can see, I have the TGA file right here. What you want to do is copy that and navigate to your World of Warcraft folder, go into Interface, Addons, scroll down, and go to Power Hour UI. You paste your TGA image right there. So before we go into WoW, which we're going to do in a second, copy this address up here. Okay, so here we are. What you want to do is left click this icon on the bottom right of the screen, or you can type in, of course, kgPanels, one word, space, config. Now what you want to do is go into Art Library. You're going to put in your artwork name. I just leave it as the same exact thing that we renamed it to in Photoshop. Make sure to press OK on the artwork name first before you put in the artwork path. Now the artwork path you want to paste right here, but you only need, starting from the interface, the path. Make sure to delete every last thing that's behind the interface right here. You want to add a backslash here and type in the exact name of the image that we created. Press OK and then hit add. Now under backgrounds, when Art Library is expanded here, you can see backgrounds. You want to expand backgrounds and then you can see the name of your image. If you see a big green box like this, that's just fine. That's very likely because you have to restart your game. So let's do that real quick. Okay, now that we're back in, let's hit that button again. Go to Art Libraries, Backgrounds, hit the name of your art asset. In my case, of course, the name is Bar, and it should be there for you. If you do still see a green box, first double check that the path is correct. If it is correct, then check exactly where you put your image. Maybe you didn't put it in the Power Hour folder, I'm not sure. Last part of the troubleshooting process that I can think of if you're still having problems is to check that the image is of course a .tga file. If it's not, then this won't work. Okay, now what you want to do is go to Active Panels, type in the name of the art asset that we just put in, press OK, and then create. And what you're going to see on the side here is this little sort of movable box, but we're not going to play with it just yet. Navigate to your image under Active Panels, go to Lock Panel, go to Texture Options, scroll down, change the border texture to none, go back to your image's main tab, hit background color, put the alpha up, and put it all the way up to white. Then go back to Texture Options, scroll all the way up, and change background texture to your exact name. It should be there for you. Okay, that's good. Now let's go back here to your image tab and unlock the panel for now. And you can move this to the side or you can close it out and open it back up later. And as you can see, we have the image here. It's of course not in the right proportions. So what I'm going to do is type in /PPA space show. This provides a grid on the screen for us to be able to see the proportions of everything. It's going to help us out. I'll talk about this add-on a little further down in the video as well. Okay, so what I like to do is actually go into the dwarf or gnome starting area here, or just go somewhere that's bright and sort of maneuver this so that you're absolutely sure that it's touching both sides of the screen. You can move this all the way down, make sure it's in the right spot. That's about right to me. And as you can see, there's a little space here. The way we can change this is by actually going back into kgPanels config and going to this image, scrolling down a little bit, about halfway or more, and you'll see this X offset. You want to set that to 0. It'll perfectly center the image so you don't have to worry about it. Okay, and then from there, when it's all said and done, you just hit Lock Panel, and then you can close this out and you're all ready to go. Now, I know a lot of people are curious about that, so if you have any questions to ask, throw it in the comments. I will definitely help you out. Next on our list is an add-on called KUI Nameplates. It's an add-on for all nameplates, whether from an NPC, a fellow player, or an enemy. To toggle nameplates in the first place, you guys probably know already, but just so you know, you hit V to toggle the enemy nameplates and Control V if you want to toggle all nameplates. To play with the options, I would hit Escape, go to Interface Options, and under Add-ons, you should see KUI Nameplates Core. Here, there's a series of things for you to do. The command for you to get into the same settings is /KUI Nameplates, all one word. Leatrix Maps is a really important add-on here for us. It provides a smaller version of the big map for us. The window with this add-on is maneuverable as opposed to Simple Map, which does not have the same function. So Leatrix Maps shows dungeon and raid locations, flight points, zone levels, coordinates on the bottom here, as you can see, for both the cursor and the player. Now, if you want to do this, you can reveal unexplored areas, and you can play around with more settings as you like. All you have to do is type in /LTM. Now, Leatrix Plus is a sort of quality of life improvement add-on. It allows you to sell junk automatically, repair automatically. You can automate quests, automate gossip, accept summons automatically, resurrections, release in PvP. So all that's up to you. I personally unchecked a lot of this. I don't really like the automated quest system, but I do really recommend for you guys to check through all this stuff. To open this window and play with the settings, you type in /LTP. Alright guys, so LunaUnitFrames is our next one. Type in /LUF to get into the settings here. What you want to do if you want to play around with the positioning of this is uncheck lock, and then you can see all the nameplates. So for example, I know some healers like to have the raid frames in the middle of the screen, so you could do that. You could maybe change it around if you want to. I'm personally a healer, and I don't mind it being on the left side of the screen. If you want to be absolutely sure that you're as accurate as possible in positioning all your unit frames, I would type in /PPA space show. This is what we did for the kgPanels tutorial, and I recommend it for this as well. Really anything where in your UI you want to fix stuff up, and to hide it, of course, you do /PPA space hide. I have it also set so that you see the buffs above the target and the debuffs below, and debuffs you only see on your player frame, and they're a little bit bigger just so you get an idea. Of course, you're also going to be able to see your buffs and debuffs on the top right of the screen, but I think especially on your frame, knowing which debuff you have is important. You also have a pet bar here that I put there, and I put target of target right next to the target here, right adjacent to it, lined it up as perfectly as I could think to, while providing enough space for the cast bar and everything. But you can also add target of target of target if you really want to. You could add raid pets as well if you wanted that as a healer. Again, main tanks, main tank targets. That's all up to you. This is really a cool, super customizable unit frame add-on, and I couldn't recommend it enough. I'm super happy with it. I believe I tried Z-Pearl before. It was another unit frame add-on. I just didn't like it as much. It's not as seamless to me as this is, and I don't think it has as many options. And anyways, in particular with this UI, I think the unit frames here with LunaUnitFrames is just much better. I also added to raid frames incoming heals, and basically to everything I added incoming heals. I think that's important for really any role that you play. Also in LunaUnitFrames, just make sure to lock when you're all said and done. That way everything that's unnecessarily there will be gone. And once again, /LUF F to get into the settings. Next one that we have is MaxCam. This is an add-on that consistently provides you with the max camera distance, because even apparently when you type in the command to get the max camera distance, it sometimes readjusts back in just a little bit. So what MaxCam essentially does is it fights back, and it just keeps consistently at that max camera distance. Now to play with the settings, and I mean there aren't many, you type in /MaxCam. It's a very simple and easy to use interface, as it is of course a very straightforward add-on. So you can adjust zoom increments, zoom speed, and max camera distance, and it tells you your current distance, which is pretty cool. Okay, MikScrollingBattleText is a really cool one. This is that add-on that shows you outgoing damage to a mob as you attack them. It also gives you notifications when certain abilities are ready, and it provides a little soundbite for you. So for the settings, you type in /MSBT. And typically what I like to configure are the master fonts right here in the general tab. So you can click on that and you can adjust the crit size and the normal text size, but I have it at those specific sizes so it doesn't get too much in the way of other parts of the UI potentially. I also go to scroll areas and I configure scroll areas, and as you can see, I got rid of the incoming damage from other mobs, but if you want that, you can totally work with it. All you have to do is just go back to that scroll areas tab and check incoming. You could also do that for notifications as well, but I find outgoing and static for me personally work the best. Now I also go to cooldowns. You can go to those capital blue A's and change the font size of a notification that pops up when a cooldown is ready for you. I changed this to 17 for every single one, just because in the middle, if it were too big, it would kind of bleed into the buffs and the debuffs of your unit frames, and I just don't really like that as much. So we're keeping it at a font that's still noticeable, but isn't big enough to where it gets in the way of the other parts of the UI. The classic WoW version of Moncai Equipment Compare automatically shows comparison tooltips in the bank, auction house, in your bags, and it automates the process of you seeing the comparison between two items as opposed to you having to hold shift for equip compare, which was a prior add-on that people would normally use. I find this to be awesome. It makes your life a little bit easier just to be able to see those stats side by side. Okay, for the add-on that's called nibProfileLoader, this actually works in tandem with another add-on called Reflux. And what it does is, again, in that basic setup guide, is it provides that window for you to be able to see, do you want to set up the Power Hour UI, for example? That's when you press accept and all that. So it's kind of like an add-on to an add-on. Again, the main one that we're going to be talking about in this case is Reflux. So once we get down there, I'll kind of go more in depth with this. It's kind of self-explanatory though. It's just a user interface means to help you load in all the profiles that you had saved from before from another character, for example. Now what you need to do though, if you want your UI to load in with that message box that I had in the beginning of the basic guide, you can actually change that from Power Hour UI to whatever you want. If you made your own UI, I would totally recommend to go into the nibProfileLoader add-ons folder and go into the nibProfileLoader LUA file. So this is where you can enter your interface name, which is the name to describe your UI. The local profile name is the add-on profile name to use with Reflux. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in depth, of course, when we get to that add-on. But essentially what this is that you want to set this profile name to all the classes you see here. Of course, it won't apply to Death Knight. You could probably delete this line. I just didn't because whatever, it doesn't make a difference. But once that's said and done and you create all that, you just want to Control S or hit File and save. This one doesn't really have a command to change up the settings, again, because you have to go into the actual add-on folder to make it happen. OmniCC you can find through the interface options window. It basically provides timers around the action bar buttons for the abilities that you have that have a cooldown longer than the global cooldown. You can change font size, the type of font. The command for this to get to the same place is /OmniCC, one word. Okay, PixelPerfectAlign is a really cool one. I really prefer this kind of add-on, and I'm really happy that Classic WoW actually has it, because it provides this exact grid that shows you exactly where you are in terms of a pixel perfect setup. It can super help you organize things. If you have a bad case of OCD like I do, this is super awesome. The one thing that I had issues with is that the minimap icon, while movable, can't actually be removed. So what I did is I went into the code for this add-on and I removed the object line for the minimap icon. So that way all the features are still there, you can enter all the commands and everything works. It's just the minimap icon isn't there. Now if you do want the minimap icon, just put back what I deleted in this video, as you can see, and you'll be absolutely fine. But of course that line, when you put it back, has to be in the same exact spot. And if you want to see all the commands for this, you type in /PPA. Prat is the add-on that we're using to configure the chat box here at the bottom left of the screen. It at default gives you timestamps and tells you what the level of characters are in the chat box by itself. You could reset that if you want. I just took it out because I'm not a big fan. And besides that, the only other things that I remember I changed were the positioning of the chat box and also the font size. It's also nicely positioned so that the text line that you have on the bottom of the screen here that shows up is fitted within this black bar or TitanPanelClassic, and of course we're talking about that soon. If you mouse over the top left of the chat box, you'll see these blue lighted up page icons that you can click on. What that does is that it provides for you the entire chat frame text. You can copy anything that you want from there, and of course press OK when you're done. To get into the options for Prat, if you want to switch things up, type in /PRAT. Okay, so Questie is the main quest helper for us. It indicates on the map and the mini-map whether you have to turn in a quest, take a quest, or go through any certain process that the quest requires of you. It also works really well in tandem with TipTac, in that on the tooltips of mobs or NPCs that you have to interact with in some way for a quest, it offers you the necessary information for the respective quest that they're involved in. Enter the settings window by typing in /Questie. You could change the scale for some of the icons that are on the mini-map. You could disable that tooltip edition that I was just talking about if you really wanted. And a super cool feature about this that I think is pretty unique to this add-on is that you not only have the ability to show low-level quests, but also choose the level range that you want to see the quests at. As you can see from the Advanced tab here, it says that Questie is under active development for World of Warcraft Classic. So this guy's GitHub that you could go to would provide probably the most up-to-date stuff, but if you're using the Twitch app, I would assume that it's updated nearly as frequently, with a little bit of a delay. RealMobHealth is an add-on that records the health pools of mobs, and I confirmed that it also does so for players. You just have to be in a party with them, I believe, in order to record that. It isn't the most accurate add-on, but it is the closest we've got. What it does is it's able to record how much damage a mob takes versus how much percentage health it has left. So from there, it kind of determines the health pool. Okay, the only known commands are /RMHDEL, which removes the selected target's recorded health pool data. If you want to be more broad and remove all recorded health data, you type in /RMHWipe. All of that is one word together. Okay, Reflux is a lifesaver for me. It's what allows for us to not need to copy and paste those folders yet again for alts and stuff like that. I haven't seen anyone else talk about this add-on, but it's super cool to use. It might be one of our only options right now to transfer over a UI. It's not the most intuitive add-on, but once you understand it, man, it is so convenient. Again, this works with the nibProfileLoader add-on extension, and what Reflux does is it saves all the profiles on your user interface except for the SexyMaps profile, which is why you always see SexyMap on the top right of the screen and you have to reset it for new characters. But it saves all the profiles from add-ons that provide profiles. For add-ons that don't provide profiles, what you have to do is go into your interface and add-ons folders and then find the add-ons that don't have profiles saved to them. What you have to do is you have to go into their TOC file and find their saved variables names. And what you do from that is when you go back into the game and you want to save that position and all the settings for that add-on that doesn't have a profile, you do /reflux add type in the exact name to what the saved variables thing was in that TOC file for that specific add-on. And then that will act as a profile saver for the add-on even though it doesn't have a profile. So that is so cool, man. That is so cool. It's a lifesaver, it really is. Because otherwise I would have to show you guys how to set up so many different add-ons, and the fact that this is a thing is just so cool. I wish more people would talk about it, and I hope they do after this video, because god damn it, I love this thing, man. Really important to note though, with this UI specifically, I pretty much saved all of the TOC saved variable information into Reflux already. So what you can notice is that if you type in /reflux save, is that you'll see all of these names that I took from the TOC files. So it says saving like SexyMap Classic DB. SexyMap TOC files I tried, as well as trying to merge with the profiles for Reflux, and it just didn't work. SexyMap just has to be manually changed by the profile for Thror Stalag, which is fine. It's no big deal. You just have to press a couple of buttons. But besides that, yeah, all of these other things like MikScrollingBattleText is saved in there, FiveSecondRule Guidelime. There's OneBag3 there because I was originally using OneBag3, but it wasn't actually compatible with Reflux. So what I had to do was get Bagnon, and Bagnon is actually compatible with Reflux, which I'm very happy to be able to say. Let's say you set up a bunch of profiles that don't match up with Reflux, like you just got Reflux and you already have a UI set up. All you have to do is type in /reflux snapshot as one word, and then it'll save all the different profiles that you see on the screen here and save it into the database. Of course, then the only thing that you have to do personally and manually is go into each of the TOC files to the add-ons that don't have profiles to them and get those saved variables, add them into Reflux, save it, and then you're good to go. By the way, after you save with Reflux, when you type in /reflux save, you also want to do /reload just to be absolutely sure that everything's set up. That's what I like to do every time. To create a profile name, if you didn't make one for Reflux, you have to type in /reflux create and then create your profile name. I made it Power Hour as one word in all lowercase, as you guys may know, but you can make it whatever you want. Type in /reflux to see all the commands for this. So thank you, whoever made Reflux. You're the absolute best, my dude. SexyMap is currently one of the only classic WoW minimap add-ons that works. That is, of course, for the the time being until more add-ons come out for this. It's so customizable, there's so much to it. It has different default presets that you can work with. You can do all kinds of different things. You can change movers, you can add a clock, put coordinates in. And I put the coordinates so that they're positioned on the bottom right of the screen with TitanPanelClassic, which is that black bar on the bottom. And we'll talk about that really soon, but I think that looks really nice right there. You could also change the font to the zone text and say when you want certain mini-map buttons to appear or not appear. I just have them all sort of not there. To get into the settings for SexyMap, this is super easy. Just right-click the mini-map. All right, next we have TipTac, and I must say that the reason I'm using this and not Tiny Tooltip, for example, is because Tiny Tooltip was pretty much perfect, except the only problem was every time you would Alt-Tab, the tooltip would start spazzing out, and it would do that for a couple minutes, and I found out that issue was not specific to just me. It has happened to other people as well. So we're going with TipTac, and this has no problems when Alt-Tabbing or doing anything like that. It provides a very simple tooltip, giving you health data. I put percentage there, but if you want to put the actual like HP numbers there, you can as well. You can configure that. One aspect to this tooltip that I thought was kind of weird is that it shows the shaman color as pink. I think LunaUnitFrames makes up for it by showing the shaman as blue. Pink apparently for shamans was the original color that was used for them in vanilla WoW. And I suppose the reasoning behind that was that each of the classes were sort of unique to each faction, so they just put pink for both, I guess. That, it seems to me, I can't customize, but besides that, this is really super customizable, so it's really up to you what you want to put on this thing. I also changed it so that the tooltip appears under the mouse, anchored below it, because in the last UI that I set up, I didn't for some reason recognize how to configure the tooltip to make it more clean and centered. It was just kind of off in the last one, and so I really prefer it this way. It's anchored below the mouse, and there's a little space in between as well, so that way it doesn't really get in the way of what you're looking at. Also, another thing that's pretty interesting with this tooltip add-on is that when you mouse over a player or a mob or whatever, you can see who they're targeting without targeting them yourself. So if a player is targeting you or inspecting you or whatever in Ironforge, you'll actually be able to tell once again without you needing to target them yourself. Pretty awesome, man. To play around with the settings here and really change almost anything that you want, you go to /TipTac, one word. Next we have TitanPanelClassic, and while I do really love this, it does require for you to do some manipulation with kgPanels if you want to get this black bar to be completely covering the bottom of the screen. Besides that though, it's freaking awesome, guys. It has different kinds of skins for it. You can throw it up at the top of the screen if you preferred that, but actually one of the reasons I put this at the bottom is not only because that's how we sort of set up the last one with the private servers, but also because I think it fits really well with that Prat chat box. So that's why I thought it was a great addition, because it really does look quite nice when you add it in like that. If you go to the plugins section here, you can add a couple things if you want to. I have it set so that we have XP, gold, bags, potential repair costs, and the percent of the durability on your armor, and the performance section of the TitanPanelClassic bar, which I think is super important because, again, like I said in the basic guide to this video, you can left click on the performance section there and do a cache memory dump, which is super important to use if your computer can't handle the add-on memory usage that accumulates over time. And that's it, but you can add a bunch of other things if you want to. Alright, last thing we're covering here is WeaponSwingTimer. It's those bars that I attempted to perfectly position right on top of the unit frames that you see, specifically with the player frame and the target frame. To describe this add-on, I mean the add-on name sort of speaks for itself. It provides for you a visual behind the weapon swing timer of your character and your target, which is really useful, I think, when you're kiting. This is of course in relation to your melee weapon. For all ranged weapons, weapon swing timer actually provides a bar for that as well. And I set it up to be where I believe is in the same exact spot as the cast bar that we have set up from Dominos. So in that way it can be seamlessly used, especially by hunters and wand users. But the reason I have it disabled by default, and we'll go into how you can enable it in a second, is because it's always showing. Even when out of combat, it's a little faded out, but it's still showing. So it's really up to you as to whether you want to use that if you have a class that only uses ranged weapons on occasion, like a warrior or a rogue or something. But to enable this bar, like we were saying in the basic setup to this UI, you have to type in /WST, press the plus sign on the side of the name there, and then go to the top left and you'll see enable. Just check that. Once again, I centered and positioned it for you, but if you want to move that around, you can. All you have to do is go back to the weapon swing timer header there, and there's that button that says lock all bars. So you want to uncheck that, move it around if you want to. I recommend for you to type in /PPA space show to get that grid in there, just so you know you're being organized with your setup. And then go back to the weapon swing timer interface options and recheck that lock all bars button. As we start to wrap up for the video, I gotta say thanks again to my good friend Tividar for helping me out with this. The testing that we did together to make sure that this download process would be super easy for you guys was pretty extensive, so I appreciate him sticking around for it. I also recommend that if you want a different style of a UI, go check out Thrakes' channel. I'll put a link in the description. He's got a UI of his own. He's trying to update it as he goes, and he's been asking a lot of questions, which is really good. It's the way to go with this kind of process, man. I know he's working super hard. I'm I'm super grateful for all the support you guys give me. It's freaking awesome, man. Post any comments below on any questions you may have. If I get a question asked a couple of times, I'll probably create a frequently asked questions section at the bottom of the description, so check that out just in case. Once again, thank you so much. Peace out, guys.